Hello everybody, this is Hadron. I am going to be looking at one of my deck ideas that I've made for standard format in the month of June 2017, in the year of the mammoth. I'm going to be looking at one of my favorite archetypes, which is Krul the Unshackled Warlock. It's built the same way as a Kazakus deck, but it has featured cards like Krul, Doomguard, Dread Infernal, and a few other just mostly control cards and tech choices that I've built around this deck. It's actually really interesting since Krul the Unshackled is almost a win condition by himself, and nobody is going to be expecting him. Even though he's actually not all that powerful, it is rather surprising when you start flooding the board all of a sudden with a bunch of these demons that seem like they just come out of nowhere. So if your opponent just can't deal with it, you win on the spot. So that's a pretty interesting. I do run the Curator package with Primordial Drake and Twilight Drake. Twilight Drake obviously good in a control hand style of Warlock. And I've also got Galaka Crawler as a beast, kind of like a tech choice against some of the more aggressive pirate decks, or just decks that run patches in general, because he's a very popular card. And I actually do have a Murloc Corrupted Seer in the deck too. So this is kind of my idea of just playing just a fun deck. You've got common control cards, Dirty Rat, Doomsayer, Earthen Ring Farseer for some heal, Tar Creeper for taunt. I've also got Tar Lurker for taunt. This card I started including in instead of Elise Starseeker, and I probably will be switching them out depending on how many priests I end up running into, because on the part of the ladder where I was actually playing in this deck, I was running into a lot of priests. So I started using cards like Tarlurker, because the priest decks would usually be more of the combo oriented, less on the control side, and I feel that the deck kind of has a lot of useful tools to kind of stave off control anyway. But I probably will be replacing the Tar Lurker with the Lee Starseeker in the near future, as I work to kind of narrow out the kinks of the deck a little bit. It's just a fun idea. It's not really competitive. It's just more like something you can just throw in and put a wrench in someone's plan. I've actually defeated a lot of shamans with this deck too. It survives fairly well if you can round out your early game. Survives fairly well against Pirate Warrior too. Voidwalker is actually really good against Pirate Warrior if you can get it on your opening draw, because the 3 health taunt blocks a N'Zoth's First Mate Patches play. From their turn 1, they have to actually use other tools to be able to get past this little bitty annoying taunt minion, and then to be doused with another annoying taunt minion or Doomsayer, followed by another annoying taunt minion, followed by, well, just a bunch of other control-y cards to try to get past them. The deck really struggles against hyperly aggressive decks like Druid, like Hunter. My win rate against Hunter is actually abysmal with this deck, so I don't usually play it that much on the ladder. It's usually just a fun deck I like to play with friends. Uh, yeah, and you've got the Kazakus package. I run Bloodbloom in the deck. I used to have Doom in here also, but I decided to switching out with a Twisting Nether. Since drawing too many cards would actually be a downside for your deck, and taking 10 damage with Bloodbloom while doing so isn't exactly very useful, I decided to use Kazakus with this combination with Bloodbloom. So you could actually play a 10 mana spell and then use the potion to gain 10 armor, and then deal 6 damage to all minions. So that's a pretty interesting combination to have for the card. So you can play the 5 mana or the 10 mana potion for only 2 with Bloodbloom, as long as you have a little bit of life to work with. And then, of course, you have like Lord Jaraxxus, all the standard Warlock cards, Abyssal Enforcer. I use Blast Crystal Potion. This is more of another one of the fringe cards that I added in the deck. It is a little slow. It does lose you a lot of tempo for the late game, but it is just basically a cheaper version of Siphon Soul. Sometimes you do need it to be a little bit quicker, even though you do lose out for the mana gain later on. In the late game, it doesn't really make much difference. It's a 4-mana Assassinate. Works just fine. So, and the mana crystal that gets destroyed is one of the mana that was spent playing the card. So you can, like, say if you have 6 mana, you can actually Blast Crystal Potion and then Blood Bloom. With all the 6 mana spent, you would have 5 mana left at the end of the turn. So Blast Crystal Potion's actually kind of like a 3 mana card, not really a 4 mana card, but you have to have 4 mana to play it. So I don't know if that's the correct way to think about this card or not, but it was an interesting point that I discovered while playing the game one day, that it really only costs 3 mana if you have more than 4 mana. So that might be an idea for some other cards later on. Yeah, it's just a fun deck to play. It really kind of struggles with the health gain unless you draw the Mistress of Mixtures, Earthen Ring Farseer. If you get something good off of the Courier, it kind of does struggle with a little bit of the health gain. That's kind of why I put in the taunt minions like the Creeper, the Lurker. When you do use Krul, you have a chance to just pull out the Voidwalker for free. Even though playing it for 9 mana, a 1 mana taunt minion is not going to make much difference. I decided not to put Lakari Fellhound in the deck. Simply because this card would only be used in this deck just to combo with Krul the Unshackled, because you do not want to discard 2 cards just for a big taunt minion. Doomguard already does that in the deck, but when you play Krul, Doomguard is an instant body that can be used for 5 damage. So it's almost like Firelands Portal, but you pay 2 extra mana for a 7/9. And it's not terrible. Plus, you get to swarm the board. I've actually beaten a few Jade Druids with this deck because they just aren't prepared for the Krul surprise board presence with a lot of these bigger minions. So yeah, that's mostly my idea behind the deck. Like I said, I enjoy playing it, and it's one of my favorite archetypes that they've come out in Hearthstone, this Kazakus theme. The Reno Jackson, yeah, losing Reno Jackson was kind of a hit with this deck, but I still think that there is some potential with the right choice of cards. I don't think it's on the same power level because you lose out on all of the health value. You've got all these cards in the expansion that kind of take advantage of the fact that you have a health pool and you can gain some tempo because of it, or gain some extra value, but you don't have any tools to restore your health afterwards. So you're pretty much relying specifically on that value to win the game. And the Warlock cards by themselves just aren't strong enough to close out in that form. So I initially thought about putting Cabal Trafficker in the deck. I made this deck back in Main Streets of Gadget Zan. I actually did have Cabal Trafficker in the deck, but I also had Barnes. So, and that was one of the inclusions that I put in the deck. Made it kind of like had minions that generated value by themselves, but that caused me to have to remove Doomsayer from the deck. Because if you just Barnes or Doomsayer, you just kind of wasted a Barnes, and maybe you didn't want to actually have the Doomsayer on the board. But yeah, that's the crux of this deck. The video that I just made is mostly just a test to see how I can interact with the game without distracting myself, and also how I appear as as you can see, the screen here is just it's not balanced. It's on my laptop. I have it sitting on my lap, as it were. So, trying to see how I appear on the stream as well, because I do intend on streaming eventually, but I think I need to have a different setup before I go full into it. So, I hope you enjoyed my little review of my Unshackled Warlock deck, and we'll hope to see you again soon. Take care.